Okay, hello everybody. Today we're here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 in Just Flight's Piper Tomahawk. Yesterday in real life, I was supposed to do my check ride for my private pilot certificate, but it got canceled at the last minute due to plane problems. I'd already done all the work of creating the cross-country to Williamsport and planned for a diversion, so we're gonna do it anyway in the simulator. It'll be good practice for me, and we can talk about what goes into flight planning and diversions. Let's hop into the pilot seat and get started. We've already done our pre-startup flows, so let's get the fuel selector to the left fuel tank. Next, we'll prime it 1, 2, 3 strokes of the primer. We'll leave it out on the last stroke. Next, we'll crack the throttle. We'll get the battery and the alternator on. Get the fuel pump on. Bring the mixture into full rich. Next, we will check that the prop area is clear. Open up the little window so they can hear us. Clear prop. All right, feet are on the brakes. Keys are in the ignition, and we'll crank it over. We have RPMs at 1,000. Looking over at the oil pressure, we do have oil pressure, so that looks good. Okay, next we'll get the fuel pump off. We'll close and lock the primer, and then we'll get the avionics booted up. All right, I'm going to set the VOR. We'll talk about that during the flight brief, and we'll dial in our initial heading. We'll be using that for some of our navigation.
National Airport, Information Oscar. 1654 Zulu. Wind 350 at 7. Visibility 10. Sky conditions, view at 3500 feet. Temperature 20. Dew point 10. Altimeter 3023. Arriving and departing runways 4, 2A. Bird activity in vicinity of airport. Visual approaches in use. Advise on course heading, altitude, and if flight following is requested. Read back all runway and hold short instructions. Advise on initial contact. You have information Oscar.
All right, we're departing from Whiskey Bravo Whiskey, which is an untowered field, flying to a towered field of Williamsport, which is a class Delta. We are flying direct. You just heard the weather on the ATIS, so we've got a little bit of wind here and a few clouds, but mostly clear skies. As we head west to Williamsport, you can see, as we tap on the weather, that we've got some wind, 8 to 15, scattered 5,000. Considering we're cruising at 4,500, that's something to be aware of because we might have a cloud deck right above us by about 500 feet. Our first waypoint will be Pike Creek. It's easier to see if I turn on the satellite photo. It sort of looks like Italy, so it's a boot-shaped lake. Can't miss it. Second one is Beaver Pond. Beaver Pond is kind of small and easy to confuse with other lakes, but it is just south of Lake Jean, which is not, so that'll be easy to spot. We'll be flying parallel to Route 118 for most of our trip here, which will also be a good visual waypoint. Our third waypoint is the intersection of Route 118 and Route, I think that's 42 off the top of my head, so that'll make a nice X that will be easy to see. There it is. We'll also be crossing 118. Then we've got Hughesville as we get close to Williamsport. Can't miss that. And then we'll arrive at Williamsport. I mentioned I'm going to cruise at 4,500. The way I determine that is by using the MEF, which is the maximum elevation figure. That's these big numbers here on the VFR sectional. That's 3,100, the 3 with the little one. 3,000 in the middle. And then as we head west, it's 3,000. So the highest thing in any of these squares on the map, the longitude latitude squares, is 3,000 to 3,100 feet. So if we fly at 4,500 feet, we won't crash into anything. South of Williamsport is Milton VOR, that's MIP. That's the VOR I dialed into, and I'm going to determine which radials intersect each of my navigation points, and then use that to help me determine when I've reached my navigation points. So if I draw the lines, you can see where they cross the compass rose of the VOR, and I'll note all of those on my navigation log, and use the course deviation indicator as I pass each of the waypoints to look for the needle to center. The reality is I won't make it past the second waypoint before the DPE diverts me, probably to Binghamton, which is the class delta to the north at about 55 miles away, or maybe one of the non-towered fields to the south, such as Hazleton. My guess would be Binghamton, so I will have to quickly work out a new route to that while flying the plane at the second waypoint. Here's what the actual navigation log looked like for this cross country. You can see it's a ton of math, and it's actually a lot of work. It takes about 2 hours for me to do one of these. You work out your course, you work out your wind correction angles using your E6B. So you take the weather, you take the wind, and you calculate what your heading needs to be to fly your course, and then you figure out your fuel consumption using the backside of the E6B, which is a big rotary slide rule. Wyoming Valley traffic, Piper 2432 Golf, taxi from the ramp to runway 7, hold short, Wyoming Valley. Alright, we've got our landing light on for taxi. And as we head forward, I'll test my brakes. Let's close this window first. Can't get the ground guy out of the way, so we'll just pretend that we're not going to whack him with the wing. Clearing our left and right. See if we can see the windsock. There it is. And it's a pretty good crosswind, favoring barely runway 7. So it's going to be a little bit of a spicy takeoff. Release the parking brake. Game on. Test my brakes. They work. Here we go, and as we start to turn here, we're going to check that all of our gauges are turning in the right direction. So the directional is turning in the right direction, turn and slip is turning, attitude indicator is level. And we'll look up at the compass and make sure that the compass is turning as we're turning the aircraft, and it is. Everything's correct. We're going to pull over here to the side for our run-up. Parking brake is set. Flight controls, elevator down, elevator up. Right aileron down, left aileron down. Next, we've got mixture full rich. We'll bring the throttle up to 1700 for the mag check. Spark plug fouling is indeed something that does happen from time to time and that you will find on the mag check. And I've also had actual bad mags found on the mag check where we've taken the whole plane back to the ramp and aborted the lesson. So that was a good drop for left and right. We put the car beat on and we had a good drop for car beat. Checking all of our gauges. Everything's in the green. That looks good. Throttle idle. The engine didn't quit. We'll bring car beat back on with throttle idle and make sure that the engine doesn't quit, and it does not. Bring the RPMs back up to 1,000. Get all of our switches on, landing lights on, strobes on, transponder to Alt Mode C. Wyoming Valley traffic, Piper 2432 Golf, back taxi runway 7 for departure, Wyoming Valley. Still a pretty horizontal windsock over there. It only set at 7, but horizontal windsock's more around 15 knots. Each stripe on a windsock is about 3 knots, and there's 5 stripes on a striped windsock. Alright, it is really hard to do a crosswind takeoff in the sim. Because to do a crosswind takeoff, you need to have ailerons that you steer into the wind with while you're still on the ground, and you let them out as you reach rotate speed. But we're also going to need to use right rudder as we put all the power in. So in this case, it's left aileron, right rudder on the ground, and I have a joystick. So it's really hard to twist the joystick while tilting it in the opposite direction. It would be much better with rudder pedals. But we are off. And we are going to just keep spiraling and climbing above the airport. So we're basically flying the pattern in a big loop, climbing up to our cruise altitude of 4,500. That's going to make it a little bit easier for our calculations here because we can start our watch just as we depart the field. And I've got some traffic there. See the traffic midfield taking off? We'll keep an eye on him because we're going to be spiraling above the field. Although we're already well above traffic pattern altitude. Alright, looks like he departed straight out, heading to the east, so we're good. We're at our cruise altitude, so we can turn to our initial heading of 278. Wilkes-Barre approach, Piper 2432 Golf, 4 miles west, Whiskey Bravo Whiskey at 4,500. We like flight following India Papa Tango at 4,500.
Piper 2432 Golf, Wilkes-Barre approach, squawk 4572 and ident.
4572 and ident, Piper 2432 Golf.
Piper 32 Golf, Radar contact 6 miles west of Wilkes-Barre, Wyoming Valley Airport at 4600 feet.
Position checks, 3-2 Golf.
2994, do you have a runway you would like me to touch down on? Runway 4, B. Copy approach. We'll contact tower on 120.1. When ready for approach to 8 November 8. Expect visual approach, 120.1. Bravo Echo 2319.
Practicing this in the sim first really does help me visualize what things will look like from the air, especially when I'm looking for waypoints like ponds that can easily be confused with other ponds.
058 Heavy Wilkes-Barre approach. Descend and maintain 15,000.
Alright, there's waypoint number 2, Beaver Pond, and this is where I am expecting to get asked to divert by the DPE.
Piper 3-2 Golf, contact New York Center on 132.15.
Over to center on 132.15, Piper 3-2 Golf. New York Center, Piper 2432 Golf, level 4500, direct India Papa Tango.
Piper 2432 Golf, New York Center, good afternoon, Benton altimeter 30.18.
Alright, sure enough, the DPE just diverted me to Binghamton, so I drew a straight line from where we're at to Binghamton. I'm going to pick out some waypoints such as Lake Jean, the Wind Farm, this route, the Susquehanna River. We've got another route, a lake past that, the Susquehanna River again, right up here at Binghamton, and Binghamton. I'll measure that distance, which is 55 knots, get a quick heading by transferring my line over to the nearest compass rose, and I can see that the magnetic heading is 023, so we'll turn to it. Start my timer. So now we're on track 023, 55 knots. Can write that on my knee board, do some quick math, figure out how long that's going to take based on the ground speed and wind direction. I can fly at 3,500 or 5,500, and based on the weather brief, with ceilings overcast at 5,000, 5,500 isn't going to work, so we're going to plan for 3,500. Let's call center and let them know what we're doing. New York Center, Piper 2432 Golf, diverting to Binghamton, Bravo Golf Mike at 3,500.
Piper 32 Golf, deviating to Binghamton approved, descend and maintain 3500.
Descend and maintain 3,500, Piper 32 Golf. Lake Jean is a can't miss waypoint that's just north of Beaver Pond, so we're already there.
Lufthansa 441 Heavy, proceed direct to fix Alpha Lima Tango.
Bonanza 762 Alpha Bravo.
We'll dial in Binghamton's VOR to help us with navigation. We're coming up on our next waypoint of the Susquehanna River. Bradford County is a few miles off my left wing if we should need to go to another airport. Let's get the ATIS before they hand us off to Binghamton Approach.
Greater Binghamton / Edwin A. Lake Field, Information Victor. 1753 Zulu. Wind 010 at 7. Visibility 10. Sky conditions, view at 3800 feet. Solid overcast at 5,000 feet. Temperature 16. Dew point 8. Altimeter 3023. Arriving and departing runways 3410. Visual approaches in use. Advise on course heading, altitude, and if flight following is requested. Read back all runway and hold short instructions. VFR departures contact clearance delivery on 125.05. Advise on initial contact you have information Victor.
Based on that, I'm expecting a right base or right downwind for runway 10, so I can start thinking about that pattern entry. Since we know approach is next, let's dial in Binghamton Approach on standby. We'll center up the CDI and see what radio we're on from Binghamton's VOR.
Piper 32 Golf, contact Binghamton Approach on 118.6.
Over to approach on 118.6, Piper 2432 Golf. Binghamton Approach, Piper 2432 Golf, full stop landing at Binghamton with information Victor.
Piper 2432 Golf, Binghamton Approach. Good afternoon, Endicott altimeter 30.21.
3021, Piper 32 Golf.
Alpha, contact New York Center on 133.35.
133.35, King Air 7 Handoff. Binghamton Departure, Skyhawk 23 Whiskey with you at Whitney Point. Request like following.
Skyhawk 1123 Whiskey, Binghamton Approach. Squawk 5635 in ident.
Let's think ahead and get tower dialed in on 119.3.
Piper 32 Golf. Contact Greater Binghamton Edwin. A link tower on 119.3.
Over to tower on 119.3, Piper 32 Golf. Binghamton Tower, Piper 2432 Golf, level 4500, landing with Victor.
Piper 2432 Golf, Binghamton Tower. Enter left base for runway 34.
Left base runway 34, Piper 32 Golf.
King Air 7 Tango Alpha, contact departure.
Alright, different runway than I planned for. Let's update that here on our 4 flight diagram.
Binghamton Tower, Vision Alpha Tango Hotel, at 3,100, currently on approach for ILS runway 16.
Hearing all the other players is one of my favorite things to think about say intentions. It's like being on BatSim.
Over to departure, Skyhawk 92 Hotel, thank you.
Skyhawk 902, Hotel Roger, good day. Experimental 90853 Golf, Binghamton Tower, 3 miles from SoCop. Turn left heading 250 until established. Cleared for the RNAV runway 16 approach.
Alright, let's make our left base pattern entry.
Piper 32 Golf, wind 010 at 7. Runway 34, cleared to land.
Runway 34 cleared to land, Piper 32 Golf. Alright, overshot that a bit, but we're back on center line and stabilized and looking good.
Runway 34 cleared for takeoff.
Piper 32 Golf, contact ground on 121.9er.
Ground on point 9er, Piper 32 Golf. Binghamton Ground, Piper 2432 Golf, clear runway 34 at Foxtrot, taxi to general aviation parking.
Piper 32 Golf, taxi to general aviation parking via Foxtrot, Bravo, Lima. Have a good day.
J parking via Foxtrot Bravo Lima, Piper 2432 Golf.
Contact tower 119.3. Skyhawk 23 Sierra Papa.
Alright, I could see a marshal out here by first air. When I actually did my night cross country to Binghamton, this is exactly where I parked, which is kind of cool. And we're good. I've used Microsoft Flight Simulator to practice for each of my real-life cross countries because it really does look like this in the air, and it is a great tool to visually rehearse how things are going to unfold across the flight. So I hope you enjoy realistic general aviation content like this. If you do, be sure to click that like button, leave me a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, as always, for flying along with me, and stay tuned for further flight adventures.